Welcome to Outdoor Explorations. I'm Emily, and today I'm going to be picking myself a wild salad because it's just harvesting time for my favorite salad. I'm going to start, only because they happen to be where I'm starting today, but I'm going to start with some of these salmonberry flowers. As I mentioned in a previous video, I only pick the two opposing petals so that it leaves something for the bees to find, and later we get berries. So I will just pick that along here. The purpose of picking salmonberry flowers or petals is not really nutrient but beauty, so really I just need to get a bunch of them to look pretty on my salad. One of the things I'm hoping to pick a lot of today are dandelions. You can see this one is growing among a whole lot of other things here. But dandelions are just becoming into their full season right now. Their blooming season, I should say. You can see this one has the leaves here. It's a kind of buried one, so we'll find some better samples later. But dandelions are an excellent food source, actually. You can eat the leaves. Many people saute them or put them in, quiches, all kinds of things. You can eat the flowers. Some people batter and fry them like pancakes. I find them quite bitter just at the base here. I'll pick this one. This is how you pick a dandelion flower. You just hold it on both sides and pull. And as you see, I kind of failed. But what you want is to just get the flower and not the stem. But basically, this part back here, where all the petals are coming from, this can be quite bitter. While other people don't mind, they fry these up, they use them whole. You can also make dandelion wine from them, dandelion beer even. What I like to do is take all the petals out. Like this, I kind of hold them from the base and work the petals out so that I end up with this, leaving the green parts behind. Doesn't look like much, but it's really easy in this season to get a whole lot of dandelion petals. The roots also, which you can't see here at all because they're under a huge whack of other stuff, the roots are excellent for the same purposes as burdock root. You can cut them up and cook them, eat them. You can also dry them and then roast and grind them and make dandelion coffee. Yeah, pretty much the whole dandelion plant is useful and edible. Similar to burdock, which is an aster too. Guess what I found? And only because my daughter found it earlier. An Easter egg! I can't really show you this, but there's a robin's nest up there. It clearly has either some babies in it or the eggs were eaten by a crow or a raven, I don't know, but to me this looks like a hatched egg. It's all beautifully clean inside. So gorgeous. How nice. Happy Easter. Just gonna leave it here. So here's some miner's lettuce. As you can see, much fleshier than the last time I showed you this. And it's starting to get all its flowers. So there are still a bunch of buds coming, but this is just the best time to eat it. I'm not going to pick the whole thing, but I'll leave a bunch of it there. You can eat the stems, the leaves, and the flowers. They're all delicious. They do have a bit of a kind of bitter flavor, almost sour. Feels a bit like your mouth is drying out. That is from oxalic acid, which is also in plants like spinach. That we can buy in the store. A lot of wild fresh greens have oxalic acid in them, so it's not particularly bad for you unless you eat piles and piles of it. So for example, you wouldn't eat a massive miner's lettuce salad every day. Maybe it might upset your stomach if you did that, but it's not particularly harmful. You've probably heard about spinach in the same way. There are a whole bunch of maple cotyledons here too, which I might grab a few of, but they're getting a bit past their time. You see this one here, which I'll pull out but not use. It's already getting its first two real leaves in the middle there. And that just means it's getting too old and tough, and I'm not going to eat that one. Oh, so is that one. So are all of these. Getting a bit too late for maple cotyledons. Let me see. How tough is this? Oh, it's not bad actually, but I wouldn't want to eat the first two leaves. They're just too difficult, too tough. So here we are at probably my favorite springtime salad gathering spot, maple blossoms, and it is coming into the perfect harvesting time. Let me explain how I know this. I'll show you here, picking this one. Basically, the flowers ripen first, not ripen, but bloom first closest to the stem, or where it came off the branch. So these are going to be the most ready. And as you can see, these are still closed. The time that you want them, and it's not only the blossoms you eat, by the way, it's the blossom stem in there. It's totally delicious. It has kind of just a salady, planty flavor, but there's a bit of an aftertaste of maple syrup, sort of. It's not sweet like that, but as far as flowers and plants go, it's sweetish. As they bloom, they get bigger and bigger and then eventually dry out. And the first thing you'll see is little tiny brown tinge beginning on the petals there. And it's not terrible to eat, but it's a bit like eating dry leaves. So, you know, by comparison to this part, you wouldn't necessarily want that. This part is also edible, but has more oxalic acid in it, as I was mentioning before with the miner's lettuce. So it's a little more bitter. It kind of can feel a bit astringent in your mouth. Also not terrible, but the perfect eating zone is kind of this section. Now, I'll eat all of it, but you know, if you want the ideal salad, you want the perfectly open blossoms that aren't yet going dry. And yeah, there are getting to be a lot of those, and in a couple of days they'll probably get to be about, I don't know how to show you, about this big, and they'll be covered in them. So I'll pick a few for my salad now, leaving quite a few to eat in a few days. You can see many of these are just barely opening, so in 2 or 3 days this will just be a buffet. Okay, it already is. You'll notice in different areas maple blossoms are more or less into bloom already. We have one just down the hill there that receives less sun, so most of its flowers are kind of at this stage right now. And yeah, but over the course of this week and next, most of them should go through their bloom cycle, and then we have all our good salads. So I'm going to do a couple things here. Just making a salad for myself on this plate, as well as pulling the petals off some of those dandelions for baking later. So as I mentioned, this is kind of the beauty zone at the moment. I'm just going to take the tips of some of these off where they're especially closed, just to keep my salad from getting too bitter. Also break them into smaller pieces. You can feel the pollen coming out. Another thing I haven't mentioned here, but alder catkins are out everywhere, spreading the earth with their pollen. And they're edible too. You can saute them, cook with them. I don't know what to compare them to, but they're a pretty great edible food also. You might want to flick a bunch of the pollen out before you eat them. And don't wait too long, because once they're dry, they're also like eating dried leaves. Okay, so there's my perfect salad. And what I'm going to do with these later is simply pull all of the petals out, as I was just doing with the salad. And hopefully that gives me about a half a cup to a cup of petals. And I'm going to make some scones, which I basically replace half of the flour with petals. And it's denser. This is why I make scones with them. It's denser than the bread would have been otherwise, but it gives it such a polleny I don't know what to call it, bready flavor. And my family is gluten-free, so in fact it really adds something of kind of the yeasty breadiness that you kind of lose when you're cooking with a lot of rice flour. So the dressing I'm going to use on this salad today is just olive oil and vinegar from Sunshine Coast Olive Oil Company, which I was happy to discover recently. This salad doesn't really need much dressing. I like dressing because it makes it less dry as a salad, but I'm just going to put the tiniest drizzle of this aged olive oil on there. And today I'm putting a little tiny bit of maple balsamic vinegar, which Sunshine Coast sells, and I love it so much. I think it complements this because of the maple flavor that's already there. You might say it masks it, which is totally understandable, and this is good with only olive oil. It's also good with plain white or dark balsamic vinegar, either way. In fact, I'm not doing this today, but one of my favorite dressings, especially for this, is simply olive oil, honey, and lemon juice. It's so delicious. It's like having lemonade on your salad with the tiniest bit of greens and maple flavor. It's hard to get everything I want on one bite. Yum. Mmm. So delicious. So, until Friday, happy exploring. Enjoy your salads. So, post-scriptum, I decided to show you some different kinds of maple trees because I realized I keep harvesting big leaf maples, which are, you know, super common around here, but we have all sorts of others too. On my walk today, I saw a vine maple, a Japanese maple, some sugar maples, and this ornamental, I don't even know what kind of maple tree this is, in the middle of my own driveway. And all of them, the flowers are at different stages. The flowers also look very different, as you can see here. They are all edible, but the vine maple had no flowers yet at all. The Japanese maple had a couple of tiny little buds beginning, but the flowers are only ever going to be very tiny on that. And the sugar maple has similar flowers to a broadleaf, but they were, I don't know how to tell you, only very small still. They were just starting to come out and not open at all. And this one, as you can see, has a very different type. If I pick this out of here, you'll see it has a much smaller stem, and instead of having a thick stem with all flowers coming off the sides, it just has about 10 different tiny stemlets here with different flowers. They're still good. They're sweet, actually. I think they're a little sweeter than the broadleaf flowers. But yeah, different types of maples, different flowers, different times. I mean, they'll all be blooming within the next few weeks, but all slightly different. So see what you have.